Evening, California and America. Here we are, California Free Radio. My name's Scott Piotr. I'm joined by my other co-host here, Kurt English, and Mike Netter he's on location in an undisclosed place. Anyway, we've got the news here in California, and man, there's a lot of stuff going on, and it's in all of its juicy stuff. So I want to start with Gavin Newsom. Gavin Newsom, we call him Gavin's California, just like he wants to take it nationwide. So we just want everybody to know in the nation what's going on in California and what they have to look forward to if they elect this nincompoop. So Newsom, California, we have in the news again his first partner. His first partner is Sybil, and she goes by first partner, and she has a
Whoa, wait a
gender.
minute, Scott. Wait a minute. Are they married?
You know what? I think they are married, but she doesn't want to go by first spouse. I don't know if that's because she's not sure of her sexuality or not sure of Newsom's sexuality. I'm not sure what it is, but it's first partner.
Well, but
It's
wait a
very
minute, Scott. Wait a minute.
yeah.
Now, Gavin Newsom had an affair with his campaign manager's wife. Was that during the time he was married to the first partner, or was that a previous marriage that the philanderer had?
That was the previous marriage. Then he fooled around with the other woman, and I think the first partner, Jennifer Siebel, is I think wife number 2. I don't know. Maybe she's wife number 3. I lose track. I don't keep track of that stuff. But she's definitely not wife number 1, or she's not mistress number 1 or 2 or 3, whatever he was up to.
So was she one of the mistresses? Did she get a promotion from mistress to wife?
Don't know those details. Don't want to start any rumors, but hey, it wouldn't surprise me. So you remember, we've talked about this before. We've talked about she's got a what she calls a gender justice organization, and they've made 4 films that really rightfully would be categorized as pornographic. So she's a porno film producer, so to speak, but she does them in an educational context with educational labels, and then she sells them to all of the school districts in California. So imagine if you're a school in California and you're looking for extra grant money from the state and from Newsom, and all of a sudden Jennifer Siebel's organization calls up. You'd like to rent our film, right? And all the accompanying educational materials, and those range from $100 to $600 a pop to show her or screen her film at your local school district. I'd love to do a Public Records Act request for our local school district and find out if they've paid the money to have this film shown. All this information comes, by the way, from California Globe. Katie Grimes is the editor. We have had her on our show a couple weeks ago, and she's the one that's done all the digging on this. So hat tip to Katie on this. And evidently a lot of the money, like for instance, remember we talk about behested payments? Behested payments are when a politician asks for money for a nonprofit, not for him, but for a nonprofit. He's got to report that so that you can't be hiding money. Hey, I've never received money from this company. Well, no, you didn't, but the nonprofit that you're the president of did, and we want to know about that too. Well, in this case, for instance, just from PG&E, $358,000 went to Jennifer Sybil Newsom's nonprofit gender justice film organization, and that's not counting the. Well, let's see. Open the books is what Katie's quoting. Reported that while the governor engaged in the highly unethical practice of soliciting 1,000 state vendors for the $10.6 million in campaign cash, his first partner, Jennifer Sybil Newsom, solicited state vendors for the governor's campaign donors for large gifts to her charity, and the charity is called the Representation Project. But what's latest in the news? Now, Katie did this expose back in January, I think it was, of 23. But now they've got a position. So what happens is she sells the screening rights for these films, and then they hire, meaning the gender equity program, hires training program facilitators that they then, of course, charge the school districts so that when they show the films, they can properly indoctrinate our kids in all the pornography and sexuality that goes on. I mean, you know the way that abusers soften the natural hesitancies and safeguards that are built into kids in regards to sex and porn and everything else. One of the things that a sex offender, that abusers do, is they show porn to the kids and let them know, oh, this is okay. See, all these people are doing it. You could do it too. And that's what this film is. They're showing porn to our grade school kids, and our schools are paying the governor's wife or first partner to run these programs. So Katie shows up. They were soliciting for a gender equity training program facilitator at her representation project, and they were asking all of these. First of all, they're saying it's a very cool program. You're working it for the big hourly wage of $25 an hour. They want to know all of these things. They want your pronouns. They want your race, ethnicity. They want your gender identity, sexual orientation. You're not allowed to ask this stuff when you're doing employment. But hey, first partner, she gets away with it. Obviously, if you're just straight, maybe they don't want to hire you, but they can't put that on the application. So they just ask for your sexual orientation, your gender identity,
Well,
and
Scott, let's talk about this for a moment. So, if a school shows this pornography, it seems like they're
right.
committing both a state and a federal crime. So, a parent listening whose school district is implementing the Newsom pornography film should file a complaint with both the U.S. Attorney's Office and with their county district attorney's office, and then should call the press and say, I believe crimes have been committed. And that should happen all over the country and all over California, wherever this is being used. We should pepper criminal referrals.
So what is the law that they've broken? For those people that
You're
need to file
showing
this.
pornography to minors. It's called child molestation.
Well, they're doing it under the guise of sex education.
Pornography is still pornography. As the Democrats used to say, Scott, the process is the punishment. Make the criminal referrals, accuse them of molesting children, put them on defense.
No, it's a great idea. For all of those mama bears like we had last week on the show, and we're going to have next week on the show, that have gotten involved and are attacking these legal issues, and certainly anybody that's actually been abused by these issues, that's something that I think Pacific Justice Institute would probably take on, right? Because they violated your parental rights, they violated your religious rights. A lot of times they show these films, they don't ask the parents' permission, and the parents don't know about it. They don't inform them about it, and they don't give them the opportunity to opt out. And besides that, California state law says that if you're talking about homosexuality and gender identity, you are not allowed to opt your kids out by
Well,
California
the
law.
solution, Scott, is you just start filing lawsuits to declare the law illegal and slow
Absolutely.
everything down. Do what the Democrats are doing to Trump. Sue on everything, forum shop, get a sympathetic judge, get an order banning the practice while it drags through the court. Just slow them down to a
So,
crawl.
I know this is a rhetorical question because I know the answer, but how come we don't have anybody in the mainstream media who have literally millions of dollars in their budget? Why aren't they investigating these behested payments and follow the money, and so they could see who got money, who gave it to Sybil, and how much she got? She takes a salary that she reports, but it's still not enough to cover their $10 million mansion they just bought in Marin County. So they're obviously getting money from somewhere, and they're not disclosing it. So we've got illicit money being raised to help, him personally in line his own family's pockets, and nobody's questioning it. It's all legit. They're taking for granted what it is that he's saying on his reports. and then so you got this money scandal, and then and that's in just raising the money. Now you got the whole issue of all these school districts are currying favor with the governor by hiring his wife's nonprofit to come in, show the pornography movie, and give a teaching lesson to indoctrinate the kids on basically homosexuality, because that's their big thing. And if they coach it or hide it in those words in anything in regards to homosexuality, and they don't teach sex ed, they don't teach how homosexuals have sex. They just teach about them. Parents are not allowed to opt out. They're not allowed to know about it. And even if they know about it, they can't take their kids out unless they want to say, hey, my kid's sick, which I would if I were them.
No, I would
But
just
this,
take the kid out and threaten to sue all the people if they don't like it. We just need a lot more suing, Scott. That's what's wrong here.
well, you're a perfect guy to say that because you're an attorney. But if you get, if you're just a mom who wants to protect your kid, how do you go about suing it? I mean, you call up the DA and see if they'll actually pick up the case. But face it, how many of the DAs
No,
and
I have an
50
answer to that question, Scott. You go to pji.org, Pacific Justice Institute, who represents uh, parents for free.
Excellent idea. Go to pgi.org, and literally they do it. Their whole mission for their organization is religious freedom and parental rights. That's what they do. And they offer these legal services pro bono. Of course, you could also say if they get any big awards from the state over it, they'll actually get paid then. You blanked out. What did you say?
I said nothing. I listened. All right. So, Scott, you're talking about education here. I have a message to parents and grandparents. If you have children or grandchildren in public schools, get them out. They're trying to
Yes.
propagandize your kids. They're trying to undermine your family's values. These people are not just wrong. We just don't disagree with them. They are evil. Anyone that's advocating to castrate children, put your son or your grandson in a dress and teach them that communism is the only fair solution to economic woes. These people are nuts, and you don't want your children influenced by them.
They're gonna steal your children's minds and hearts from you. You
Yes.
won't recognize them by the time they're done.
Yes, get your kids out of public schools. And also, 94% of Christian schools, Scott, use public school textbooks, which are full of intellectual rot.
Right.
The
But
classical
still,
Christian schools and home schools with your values is the way to go.
so charter schools are a good option if you can't afford the others. Private school is a good option if you don't have the time to homeschool. And there are a lot of Christian and other schools that have very reasonable tuitions and scholarships for those that can't afford it. But like you said, you can't just take it for granted that the local school at the church down the street is going to be a good educational platform if they're using the public schools textbooks. You need to put pressure on those guys to use good textbooks because the curriculum is everything. But charter schools, private schools, preferably private religious schools, or homeschooling. And homeschooling is really the ideal situation. You do not need to be a certified teacher to be able to do that. You just have to love your kids, which I'm sure
There
that
are
means that
plenty of homeschool curricula that are available where other people
lots
have
of
already done the
lots of
hard work.
advice.
There's
And there are
videos.
organizations that will
Yes.
help you and combine. A lot of homeschoolers get together on 1 day a week or whatever, and they do things like art and science projects and things like that that might be a little bit more difficult for you to do on your own. So there are alternatives. We need to do that. Okay, next issue: Newsom's California. What is Newsom's new, I call it, rigged scheme to totally eliminate the GOP in California?
For our audience, that means the Republicans, the GOP.
The GOP, yeah, but what's the answer, dude?
The, Newsom has some scam where he wants to replace the initiative that approved the Redistricting Commission of Citizens, where he becomes the Politburo of redistricting, and he has the sole authority to redistrict, like a Hitler or a Stalin or a Mao dictator.
What's so crazy is that we've been fighting redistricting in California. The whole concept of redistricting, right? We want the citizens to choose their politicians. We don't want the politicians to choose the voters, right? We want the voters to choose the politicians, and so you want a fair redistricting, one that isn't drawn. They call it gerrymandering after some guy named Jerry, whatever, back in the 1920s. But the whole concept is you want it to be a fair district where you can have a fair shot at electing whoever. So Newsom was responding to Texas, who was talking about redistricting, and they have a deal in Texas where the legislature draws the boundary lines and the governor signs it, just like any other law, which is the way it used to be in California until the Democrats started gerrymandering and everything. So now we have an independent commission, which, by the way, is staffed with all Democrats. So it's not very independent, but technically it's independent. And
Well, Scott, there's another reason Newsom wants to control it, because the Trump administration and conservatives in Congress are talking about rerunning the census this year before the elections next year and counting only American citizens. You see, the Biden administration counted illegal aliens in 2021 when they took the census.
right, I'm sure we'll find several liberal wacko judges that will put restraining orders on that. But
Yeah, Trump
yeah,
will just ignore them and say, "See you at the Supreme Court."
which he's been having victory after victory because we're on the right side of the issues and they're not. We'll get back to some of these bad judicial decisions that have been coming up. But
Oh,
as an
Scott,
example,
we have one of our viewers that gave us a great little tidbit. The Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, the federal court, today agreed that background checks for ammo purchases in the state of California are unconstitutional.
so I don't want to get off the track on that, but that's really good news because it used to be that you had to go through a gun safety check and background check and register just to buy ammo, which is a roundabout way to limit your guns and your access to guns. So it
Yeah.
was a
So does that mean that we can walk into a gun store now and buy ammo without having it reported to the state of California?
I'm sure it's going to be appealed and probably stayed until the appeals run out at the Supreme Court. But
Well, there's only
hey,
one more place to go after you're at the federal appeals court, and that's the U.S. Supreme Court, Scott.
I know it used to be the ninth district was the worst district in the country. Now it's one of the best, and that's because of Trump 1.0, his term. He appointed a lot of judges to the Ninth Circuit. So going back to the
Well, wait a minute, Scott. Let's jump on that for a second. But our Republican Senate, including John Thune, the leader, have done a pretty poor job of confirming judges the first 6 months and confirming Trump's appointees. And so what they need to do is they need to stay 7 days a week, 14 hours a day, grinding these confirmations out until the Democrats agree to not slow down the process unnecessarily.
yeah, again, that's another subject, but they've got like 292 judges that have been appointed but haven't been confirmed yet, and now their temporary 90 days on the bench while they're going through confirmation is starting to expire. We had our first expiration earlier this week.
So my
So
solution to that is Thune should just recess the Senate, and Trump can appoint them all as in one big, beautiful recess appointment.
it resets appointment, and then they get to be appointed for a year while they're going through the appointment process.
No, it's
Yeah,
until the end of this session of Congress at the end of 2026.
oh, so almost 2 years.
So it'd be a year and 5 months.
Yeah, the end of the 2 year cycle. So again, that's what's happening with the redistricting. Not only, like you pointed out, that Gavin Newsom got to count all the illegals in California. That's why we have 52 seats instead of 48 or less. And we're talking congressional seats. So it's a big deal because an extra 4 congressmen from California are almost guaranteed to be liberal. Whereas if you had an extra 4 congressmen in Florida, they're probably guaranteed to be conservative. And so when Texas governor said, "Hey, we're going to redistrict," Gavin Newsom goes, "Well, screw that. If you're going to do that, I'm going to do it in California too." Even though we have a redistricting commission that's been voted in by the voters, and he can't change it without going back to the voters, He's going to try. Okay, tell me this. Tell me that it's fair. In this state, there's about 34% Republicans. What's the percentage of Republicans in the legislature or Congress?
When the legislature, as you know, we have 19 out of 80, so less than 25%.
Yeah, 18% basically in the legislature and 18% in Congress.
No, not
So we have
18%, Scott. Less than 25 is about 23.
so we have about 18% compared to 34%. We're already very, very much underrepresented. He wants to bring it down to zero. Face it, he doesn't want Republicans. He doesn't want competition.
But
He wants zero.
the solution is that we need to impose paper ballots, same day voting, go back to precinct voting, ban mail voting, ban ballot harvesting, go back to the old system. And there are many people that are trying to get that passed in Washington, D.C. and force it on the 50 states, fair elections. Oh, imagine that.
At least for the federal elections, right?
Yeah.
No, I think that's good. Voter reform is still a very, very important thing. Okay. New order, presidential order just signed today by Trump. American cities they're going to remove vagrants from our streets, which, that's a shot at Newsom, right? There's like 274,000 homeless in the country. So they estimate about 174,000 of those are in California. So basically he's going to come in and he's going to mandatorily take these homeless guys, and he's going to put them all in rehab for those that need rehab. He's going to address their issues. He's going to force the cities to address the issues, and they're going to get them off the streets where they're a public safety threat, and they're becoming more and more crime ridden, and they're ruining cities and neighborhoods. I mean, LA, forget it. There's West Side, for instance, used to be the place to live with all the homeless, because hey, the homeless figured out the West Side's pretty nice too. So what can I say? It's coming back. Newsom's California. It's always there. So talk to me about Newsom. He wanted to buy Sacramento, allow Sacramento to buy on the cheap Palisades burned up properties.
Well, Scott, there was a bill in the state legislature in California that would have allowed, actually, Los Angeles to buy all that land, probably with state money, and then to convert it into low income housing. So, for those of you who are not familiar with Pacific Palisades, it's a 100-year-old neighborhood in the western part of Los Angeles, near Santa Monica, up the hill from Santa Monica, near Malibu. Very wealthy and expensive area, and a lot of limousine liberals have lived there for a long time. And boy, have they gotten a comeuppance. After the fires, they've been trying to deny them permits. The federal government came in and helped with cleanup, and even Karen Bass, the communist mayor of Los Angeles, acknowledged that. But then they're not giving people permits. They're obstructing rebuilding. And a lot of these people are wealthy enough to just go ahead and rebuild without borrowing money if they want to. But they have a different plan. The far left in our country, the Democrat Party, don't want nice neighborhoods. That's why they want to let you build alternative dwelling units or additional dwelling units in your backyard so that you have a concrete canyon ruining your neighborhood and making your neighborhood more crowded. They want to put too many units on one residential property. So what they want to do with Palisades is the far left wants to get rid of the rich people that live there and put low-income housing there. Why? So they can import illegal aliens, vote with them with fake ballots and ballot harvesting, and permanently stay in power.
Absolutely. So again, I love the fact that most of the people that live in the Palisades, like you say, are limousine liberals. They're rich liberals, and they're basically getting screwed by Karen Bass and Gavin Newsom.
But Scott, what's interesting, Scott, is yes, they were, but they raged on their state assembly member and their state senator, and they threatened hellfire and brimstone politically, and they yanked the bill for consideration for this year because of the overwhelming pressure by those people and their political threats. Not violence, but saying, I'll never vote for you, I'll run against you, and I can fund my own campaign. I'm going to fund so and so's primary campaign against you, or I'm going to switch to Republican and run against you with my money.
I love it. Well, let's keep going on the fires, but I'm gonna tease everybody. Towards the end of the show, we're going to talk about Adam Schifferbrains and his latest mortgage fraud issues.
Oh, Scott, we can't wait. That's such a wonderful story. Let's get into it now.
Yeah, there's so much stuff to talk about. Fires, Schifferbrains. Okay, explain what's going on. What is the whole fraud and everything he's accused of? Explain that.
All right. So I'm a licensed real estate broker in the state of California, right? And in the old days, before the Obama administration, that's all you needed to do mortgages. Now you have to have the national license. So, as many of our viewers and listeners know, if you apply for a mortgage on your primary residence, you may be able to get a lower rate than if it's not a primary residence or if it's a commercial rental.
Because you get a Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac loan, it's federally backed. Yeah, okay, got it.
So, Adam Schiff is a radical left-wing first member of Congress from, the Burbank, San Gabriel Valley area in Los Angeles County.
Right, he should be volunteering to pay more taxes, right? Because he's a liberal.
Yeah, well, he wants us to pay more taxes, but apparently he doesn't want to pay the same mortgage rates we have to pay if we tell the truth.
Yeah, good for thee, not for me.
He applied for a mortgage on a California residential property and claimed it as his primary residence. But it turns out that he's lived in Maryland with his family for 22 years, according to his own statement. So 22 years ago would have been 2003. That's a long time ago. And I guess his kids grew up in Maryland, not here. And he took out a mortgage on a Maryland home and claimed that that was his primary residence. So, as you know, Scott, if you're
he's registered to vote in California, right? He represents California as not
Congress in California. You have to live in California. That means your primary residence is in California.
Okay, I'm following so far.
So either he's not eligible to be in the House and now the U.S. Senate, or he lied on his mortgage application for his Maryland home. One must be true.
So according to some of the news, it's one of those things where not only did he get his loan in 2003, but he's refinanced a couple of times. And he's lied every single time, even after the Congressional Ethics Committee warned him that it was improper to lie on a federal loan. We're not talking, people go to jail for this. Look at what happened to Trump, right? Trump had a commercial real estate loan. He borrowed the money. He did his project. He paid it all back, and the jerk up in New York City decided, oh no, there was fraud there, right? What they claimed was that Trump misrepresented the value of his assets to the bank, and that's a federal fraud problem. He said that they were worth a lot more than they really were. Which any moron would look at that and say, man, if anything, he underestimated it.
Well, the issue, let's be precise, Scott. The issue was that the Mar-a-Lago property in Florida, a judge arbitrarily said it was worth $18 million when any objective review of the fair market value would have it at $1.5 billion or more. So the judge, instead of being a neutral arbiter of fact, became an advocate, engaged in, if not fraud himself, gross incompetence.
So the same thing, though. They had a loan, even though it wasn't a federally backed approved loan. It was a private commercial loan to a private developer, and they would both be responsible enough at that level to do their own due diligence. But this guy manufactures it and says, we believe fraud occurred. He misrepresented to the bank, even though the bank was happy with it and lent him the money and paid it back already. they decided to. He's a felon now, right? Because the liberals did this stuff. This is what he's a felon about. He's a felon because he supposedly lied on his loan
Well, I
application.
believe that case
It was
was
federal
overturned,
loan.
wasn't it?
No. This is one where the judge basically, when he did the sentence, he said, "I'm gonna have no sentence because you're a president now, so you're not gonna serve prison time or anything else. It's gonna be just no sentence." So the felony's stuck. It's still on his record, and that's what it is. His felony is
Well,
for.
he should appeal that because there were so many reversible
No, I
errors.
think he is, but this is
Good.
the same thing that Shifty Shift Adam Schifferbrains is doing. He lied on his loan application 3 times in Maryland, not even counting the whole issue that he's supposed to be representing Californians, and that's supposed to be his primary residence. Therefore, he could never have as his primary residence in Maryland. I mean, face it, if you're a congressman and you're raising kids, you're either going to be away from your kids 5 days a week for most of the year, or you're going to bring your kids out to Maryland or Virginia, and you're basically going to set up house there, and you're just going to go back to the district on weekends once a month to represent your constituents. So you really are moving anyway, but you can't technically declare it as your primary residence and still represent Californians out in your district here. And you can't lie on your form and say it's your primary residence when obviously it cannot be because you're representing California. So he needs to go to jail. There are people that are serving jail time, literally 5 years for doing exactly what he did, lying on federal loan applications. You know, we got two-story justice here. We need Speaker John, or we need Senate Majority Leader Thune to have an ethics committee. We need Pam Bondi to file charges against this guy, and we need to, hey, he's the one that says no one's above the law. Remember, the whole J6 thing is committee. Nobody's above the law. Nobody's above the law. You can't do this. Nobody's above the law. Well, he's got to live by those words. He cannot be above the law.
But
Yes,
Schiff
no.
lied repeatedly about the Russia hoax too with Trump, and that's one of the
Oh
things
no,
that
no.
Tulsi
Lying's
Gabbard
okay.
talked about in referring all these people to the Justice Department for considering for prosecution.
Well, he's a politician. You expect him to lie, but he's not allowed to lie on federal loan forms. That's a crime. You and I'd be in jail. This guy is still a U.S. senator, for crying out loud. So anyway, fires. We'll go back to fires. Karen Bass. I mean, she doesn't win any points. She doesn't get triple digit IQ. This lady is not a very bright lady. She's just a dumb Marxist. And there's a couple of issues that have come up. One is we had a big, huge concert. They called it Fire Aid. And all of these private citizens, mostly, maybe some companies or some businesses, they donated literally over $100 million. And this aid was advertised at the concert. It was supposed to go directly to help fire victims. It was not going to go towards overhead. Where'd the money go?
To NGOs that support liberals to propagandize people. It was laundered for political purposes.
Exactly. Just like the whole USAID thing, uh, this money didn't go to any of the Palisades, didn't go to any of the Altadena fire.
But Scott, let's talk about these so-called benefit concerts for starving people in Africa and Live Aid and all those things over the last decades. The money never gets to people that need it. It's always been fraudulent and it's always been misrepresented. And these dumb actors and dumb musicians and dumb media people mouth these lies. I call it Pharisee charity, like the Pharisee and the widow's mite story from the New Testament. Scott, the Pharisee was bragging about the money he put in the to donate, and then the widow came in and quietly put her money in. Jesus said that her gift was more important, and because the Pharisee got
Because
his reward on earth.
she gave all she had, and the Pharisee gave a pittance of what he had.
But he
So
also made a big deal out of it. And
Congressman
that's what
Kiley.
these liberals entertainment people do. They make a big deal out of their charity. They don't monitor where the money really goes, so it never really benefits anyone, but they want to take credit for being charitable. It's called Pharisee charity.
So the Congressman Kiley wrote a letter to Attorney General Pam Bondi, basically saying, "Hey, wait a minute, guys, because Breitbart broke this story that the money for fire aid advertised it was all going to go for direct relief, but Fox 11 and Breitbart broke the story that they've now been diverted to a lot of nonprofits, many of which are, you know, they have no connection to fire relief or recovery. You've got, there's one called After the Fire, which is in Sonoma. It describes itself as, quote, coaching, convening, and collaborating, end quote. Another grantee mission vaguely was described as, quote, multi-generational power building and civic engagement, end quote. So, those mission statements may be nice, but they're not fire related. You got money going to favored.
No, Scott, they're not nice. They're just covers for liberal political activism, which is fraud. If I was those homeowners that had my home burned in Palisades, I'd get a lawyer, do a class action lawsuit, and make them show the books and sue the recipients and claw the money back.
So you have all these, I'll call them naive entertainers. There were a lot of big headline names. They generously donated their time and talents to the concert. They successfully raised over $100 million, and they were suckers just like the people that wrote checks because all the money went to favored Democratic partners, and none of that went to fire relief like advertised. So I hope Pam Bondi investigates this thing. She chases the money down. What do you want to bet, Mr. English, that these NGOs and nonprofits made sizable contributions to Democrats
That's
with
always
this
how it
money?
is. Now that USAID has been shut down, now they got to get money someplace else
They got to figure out another way to get government money. In this
to
case,
steal from
not
us.
government,
Yes.
to come back at it. Okay, speaking of fires, that was Karen Bass. I'm presuming she's too dumb to direct this stuff, so she's got other people that are helping her direct this stuff. But she obviously is reaching for things. Guess who she had visit LA to help guide her and give her advice on how to handle the aftermath of the fires.
The same people that screwed up the fire response in Maui. You notice how incompetence seeks out other incompetence.
It's kind of like, really? You're going to ask the people in Maui County, in Maui, how best to handle this? You couldn't have a worse example of somebody
Where
who
all
has
those
screwed it
people
up.
died, all those
Yeah,
people
over 100
died,
people
and it was
died in
all
Maui.
avoidable.
Oh,
All
they
avoidable,
even shut
Scott.
water off. They shut water off during the fires because they had reached their green allotment and they weren't allowed to have any more water. And I wonder how many additional people died because of that stupid decision by some bureaucrat, climate change tree hugger guy. But hey, maybe we can do the same thing in California. Oh
Well,
wait,
and
they are.
also they didn't have they didn't have the proper fire breaks in place. There's a lot of things that went wrong, and they had emptied. There's a whole litany of blunders that led to
But
that.
it's very similar to California. I mean, they didn't do fuel modification because of the gnat catcher. Of course, no gnat catchers anymore. They all fried. Uh, they didn't have the reservoirs full to be able to fight the fires. They didn't have enough water to begin with, and so it was a cacophony of errors, just like Maui. Except we only lost 30 people in our fires, which took out more structures. Heck, in Maui, they were jumping in the ocean to get out of the way, and they still got burned, even if they went into
Because
the
there,
ocean.
some of them, yeah, because the fuel floats on the water, and some of the fuel got out there and burned the ones that were swimming. It was very tragic. All right, let's talk about uh, all the other incompetence in California. There's so much of it. One problem we have now is that businesses are leaving California because of the crime, the incompetence, the failure to protect people from fires, the high taxes, and just the awful quality of life. Well, later we'll talk about the pollution in San Diego, but that the Trump administration is trying to fix. But one of our favorite restaurants in California is In-N-Out Burger.
Our favorite, yes, definitely.
Oh, I can hear you now. And In-N-Out Burger, the president got on Alice Stuckey's podcast and said she's moving her family to Tennessee. This was anticipated. But another important California business bailing on California. And her rule is she wants to be able to have a one-day travel to any of their restaurants. So what California can count on is slowing or ending new In-N-Outs, and now they're going to have them near where she lives. So we're going to lose In-N-Out in the long run here, and we're going to lose all those profits because one business after another is leaving California thanks to Gavin Newsom and the Democrat Party. Democrats to blame, Scott.
Newsom's California. Yeah, she had opened a Tennessee corporate office earlier, like a year ago, but now she's making the move. Hey, I I have done a lot of what they call conditional use permits as an architect, and one of these drive-throughs, like an In-N-Out, they need to have a conditional use permit. Generally speaking, it takes 6 to 12 months to get a conditional use permit. So I was talking to a guy from Carl's Jr., and they basically have a policy now. They're not opening new restaurants in California. They can take $1 million that it costs them to develop a site, and they can open a site in Texas, and they can be open within 6 months. I mean, we're not talking just permits. We're talking about actual construction complete, serving burgers in 6 to 12 months. And they're just getting through with the paperwork in California. And the California, that $1 million is more like $2 million. So it's just,
Well,
hey, if you
Scott,
got,
the Carl's Jr. on Adams in Costa Mesa is closing. For a lease sign, they're out of there.
well, I totally understand it. Their rent's going up, and if the revenues don't keep pace with it, they can't afford to be there. So they're already emphasizing their resources in other states. California's just doesn't give them the return that they need to be able to continue to do business. And I'm sure that's the same with In-N-Out. They've been opening up restaurants very frequently in Tennessee. They started in Colorado and Denver, for their out of state. They really didn't go much beyond Nevada, being able to serve those from California. Then they skipped over to Colorado and Texas, and now Tennessee. Everybody's saying, "Go to Florida, go to Florida." So, they're resisting going national because, like you say, they like to be 1 hour or one day away from maximum from all of their warehouse and preparation places. And so they're not the only ones. All these businesses are finding it's a better investment to invest in another state. So why waste your time and resources in California for an iffy or negligent return? And with crime and all the other things, I mean, the very, very first, the one and only In-N-Out that's ever closed in the corporate history was in Oakland, California, and it was because of the crime rate. They just
And we
didn't
talked
provide.
about it first, Scott, on the radio and on our video cast. So one of the
Absolutely.
other problems is the homeless problem that's causing businesses to close. And we got some news on that, Scott. So the city of San Diego has reached an agreement to allow them to clear homeless encampments along some of the freeways in San Diego. Now, wait a minute. Homeless encampments on freeways, Scott? Really?
Under the freeways. They should not be on the freeways. Now
Okay.
I mean, I've driven LA a lot, and there's a lot of exit ramps, which are technically part of the freeways, and there are homeless encampments in those areas. But I have not seen any on the actual freeway. But it's amazing. We're in West LA. You drive under a bridge in LA, and it's got literally a homeless encampment that's got dozens of people living there. You drive 10 blocks away or 2 blocks away into Culver City, and there's none. because Culver City cleans up their streets and keeps the vagrancy down. LA does not. So I'm surprised that San Diego is actually biting the bullet, because it's still a blue city down there. It turned blue about 10, 15 years ago or 20 years ago.
Oh yeah, there's such incompetence there. And our friend Amy Reichart, who's been on the show, exposes the corruption in San Diego, and it's awful.
Yeah, if you
But
want to
then
know
in
what's
Los Angeles, they have what the business owners are calling a homeless RV wasteland, where these broken down RVs are just parked, and the people are going around and doing illegal dumping, and they're stealing the copper from the businesses. And so one business owner just says, "I'm out of here. I'm going to go to another state."
Yeah, he was saying that that they stole all the copper in his facility. Literally, I don't know how they do it without getting electrocuted, but they get in their electrical system, especially those big, huge mains and big wires they have in a manufacturing facility that uses a lot of power, and they just steal all the copper and sell it for the scrap, which has a significant value as scrap.
Well, but Scott, let's talk about where in the world that happens. That happens in primitive third world countries. These are primitive people engaging in primitive behavior when they do that.
Yeah,
It's not civilized. It's not part of our civilized society. That's primitive behavior.
Agreed. I saw a picture the other day of the.
And by the way, Scott, if that offends you, go listen to MSNBC. You're probably in the wrong place.
Yeah. So I saw a picture of the relatively new 6th Street Bridge over the Los Angeles River in LA, and all the lights are on. It was beautiful. You look at it today, the lights are gone. All the copper's been stolen already, and they haven't bothered to replace it. I mean, you steal
and they're
copper,
not going to, because it'll just be stolen again by the criminal element that the Democrats who control California and Los Angeles won't prevent from engaging in crime.
There and they get a couple $100 of worth of money for copper and stealing the copper, and it literally costs hundreds of thousands of dollars to replace it. By the time you do all the labor to put it back where it belongs and hook it all up, you're talking tens to hundreds of thousands, depending on the size.
And pay the prevailing wage union contracts for excessive costs. Yes.
In the case of the city, that's exactly right. Hey, I was saying when my mic was muted, just so that I don't forget, Adam Schiff for Brains, they put together a website. Bish put together a website, and that's Bish for Congress, or at Bish for Congress if you want to find him on X. And they put a website together called Schiff Exposed. And they have links to actual documents, his loan documents, his reports, all the things that, this isn't a made up thing. This isn't a conspiracy theory. They brought the receipts. The receipts are on the website.
Scott, can you post that on our stream here so people can see that link?
Sure, I'll put that on the bottom of the screen for us, so we'll be able to do that. But absolutely, we have. This isn't conspiracy theory. This isn't what can we do to screw Adam Schiff because he tried to take down the president. These are actual documents. The receipts are there. So check it out at schiffexposed.com. And I'm coming up with that now.
All right. Well, while you're doing that, Scott, let's change gears. Another thing the Democrats are doing in California and our country to damage our country and our family's future is they're trying to castrate children. And my alma mater, as many of you know, is the University of Southern California. And USC allowed a professor to have a gender transition clinic, meaning a child castration clinic. And it shut down amid pressure from the Trump administration. So we had a win. Sadly, it was not the liberal president at USC that just got fired, Carol Folt, and it was not the Democrats in California that stopped it. It was the Trump administration.
But why are we surprised, right?
Well, they don't like our families. They also don't like free speech. Liberals hate free speech because they hate criticism. And there was a Orange County Community College, Golden West College at Golden West, south of the 405 freeway. traditionally, a pretty Republican area in Huntington Beach. And the liberals that ran the school tried to suppress free speech. So they wouldn't let students or student organizations criticize men playing in women's sports, illegal immigration, or other obvious things that deserve criticism, but more importantly, are the subject of free speech when you're at a government-run school. And so the Young America's Foundation had to sue Golden West College and get a settlement so that students could engage in free speech. That's another outrage by Democrats, Scott.
So was this just protesting on campus? Was this discussing it in classrooms? Where was
all
the discrimination?
Of the above. All of the above. If you said something liberals didn't like, they tried to suppress your free speech rights. This is a public school, Scott. They get federal money. You can't violate people's civil rights when you take federal money.
Well, they shouldn't violate them even if they don't take federal money. It's just that we have leverage over them. So
yeah, and as Stephanie says, they don't want the nuclear family. They don't want children to think for themselves. And this is an example of what Stephanie's saying. They don't want free speech. They want to propagandize children to believe what they want them to believe.
Well, they want to be the ones doing the indoctrination. That's all.
Yes. They want them to believe white people are evil, Christians are evil, heterosexuals are evil, American capitalism is evil. They hate us and they hate our country.
Did you see that Kristi Noem called a California judge an idiot? I mean, take a
fact check, Scott. True.
Take a number, wait in line. How many judges are idiots? I mean, give them a black robe and they think they're God. These guys are awful. So you saw what they did at Planned Parenthood. Planned Parenthood, they put a stay on it. Trump defunded Planned Parenthood. He did it by saying no large health provider that provides abortions will get any federal money. And
well, they were also defunded in the rescission bill that passed that Trump signed.
In the rescission bill, but the big beautiful bill specifically excluded those organizations. So of course they go to a liberal judge. This liberal judge's name is Indira Talwani, an Obama appointee. She definitely needs to resign or be impeached. Of course, you'll never get an impeachment because the idiots in Congress love these judges, and it takes a certain amount of Democrats to actually impeach because you have to have 2/3 vote for an impeachment. But
now let me clarify, Scott. The House impeaches, that takes a majority vote. The Senate convicts, that takes the 2/3 vote. So you can be impeached like Trump was twice. You just can't be convicted.
But, it's not like the reality of it is it's not going to happen. So, Congress needs to defund that judge's district and fire her ass. She should not be on the bench. She's an incompetent boob. So, I mean, where does it say she actually thinks, the part of the thing you as an attorney would know is to be able to sit there and say that you're going to be able to keep the stay, you have to show that you're likely to win your argument in court, right? So the argument is that by defunding Planned Parenthood, it's hurting the free speech rights of Planned Parenthood. Explain to me that logic.
No, there's no logic behind it. It's just a judge trying to act like a black robe dictator. Let's be honest.
I mean, we never elected her to make decisions on funding for the entire stinking country. What in the heck where does she get off telling us what we can do and not do with our own money?
Well, the solution, Scott, is Congress has the power. The Trump administration should just tell all these liberal judges, pound sand, we're going to ignore your orders. And what would be a real in your face is if he pardoned every American from following the judge's order in this case. Blanket pardon.
But the liberals are waiting for that to happen, right? They want to say that, Trump is lawless. He's not following the law.
Great. They're lawless. Let's have that argument, Scott. Let's just argue and argue and argue and argue and argue.
We're having that argument, but we're having it in the courts. And Trump, in the 6 months he's been there so far, he's gone and appealed and appealed and appealed, and he's won like 99% of his cases. I think there's only like one he hasn't won fully.
Well, we're about to win birthright citizenship at the Supreme Court because they forum shopped for that liberal district court judge and that liberal appeals court judge. That's the
Wait a
big
minute.
one.
Wait a minute. Okay. I've had this argument with people, and if you ask Grok this question, whether or not the United States has birthright citizenship, Grok will tell you that yes, we have birthright citizenship. It's not totally, um, uh, universal, but it's mostly universal. And the exceptions that Grok points out are like children of diplomats. So the
No, no,
14th
no, no,
Amendment,
no. Let's go back to the 14th Amendment. The
yeah,
14th Amendment
tell us what it says exactly.
wanted to make sure that freed slaves born in the United States were considered United States citizens. Period.
Right. So this is
The
a post
14th
Civil War
Amendment
thing.
that they refer to only was written to protect freed slaves after the Civil War. It never was intended to protect illegal aliens who were invading our country. It was never
So
intended to protect foreign armies invading our country or
no,
anyone else.
let's be really clear. After the slaves were free, after the Democrats started their own country or tried to in order to keep slavery, after all of that happened, the Democrats decided that blacks were not citizens and therefore couldn't vote because they wanted to keep them from voting. And so the 14th Amendment was passed after the fact to keep Democrats from blocking blacks from voting after the Civil War. And in there, I'll read the actual language. It says that, I was going to read the exact language, but it's here. I'll go to the constitutional site. Okay. All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States. So they use as an example that if you're a diplomat, you're a diplomat from France and you're here on assignment and you have a baby while you're here, that baby's not a U.S. citizen, it's a French citizen. But
correct.
But the actual reality of it is when it comes to immigrants, it applies to them too. They sneak in here, they're illegal, they're not subject to our jurisdiction, they're still subject to El Salvador or wherever it is they came from, and therefore they are not citizens if their kids are born here. And yet it's been applied over the last 50 plus years that anybody born in the country is automatically a citizen no matter what, no questions asked.
That's because Democrats want that. It's not because it's what the Constitution says.
Right. And so by winning birthright citizenship, you're reversing 50 plus years of Democrat interpretation of the Constitution, which of course is wrong, which of course is racist, which of course is to get and give them more power. But we're going back to the way the Constitution was framed and the amendment was originally intended, that you're not automatically a citizen just because you're born here, unless you're also subject to the jurisdiction thereof, which an illegal immigrant is not.
Nope. Well, Scott, there was some good news this week. Would you like to hear some good news?
Oh, I always like good news.
The House of Representatives passed a bill to prevent the creation of a central bank digital currency. So for people who are saying that's kind of a lot of words, no digital money. The reason you don't want digital money is you saw what happened during the China virus hoax, where they had a shutdown and they would cancel you if you said something they didn't like. If there's digital currency and you vote the wrong way or your social media post doesn't agree with the government, they could just cancel the money in your bank, prevent you from transacting. Very dangerous. We need a cash economy so people can spend money without the government overseeing it or stopping it.
Oh yeah, I think, like you say, you just kind of touched on it, but I think there are even scarier scenarios where you come in and you want to buy a bag of Fritos in your groceries, and it comes up and flags you and says, he's got high blood pressure, he's not allowed to buy Fritos, and they go to that extent. Not only you can't buy guns, you can't buy ammunition, you can't buy Fritos, you can't buy ice cream, you can't buy whatever other junk food you like if they don't think it is going to help your health. Big Brother can go really, really far with digital currency.
Yeah, we got to stop that. Earlier, we talked about Gavin Newsom.
More good news. You got more good news?
Really?
I got good news. That same decision in Planned Parenthood where she decided that it was a First Amendment right to do that. It did not apply to certain Planned Parenthood centers. And in California, they're estimating Planned Parenthood's going to lose $300 million because of that same decision, because it doesn't, that stay got changed and got made smaller in
Go.
focus. And so the California Planned Parenthood is going to lose $300 million. That's really good news. There's going to be a lot more babies around because of that.
Well, and other states are closing Planned Parenthood locations too.
Right,
So-
because they're going out of business.
So
Hooray,
earlier we had a lot of negative stories about Gavin Newsom. Well, here's another one. Now Gavin Newsom is trying to lie about his 3 years of China virus lockdowns. Did you hear about that, Scott?
Well, are you surprised that Democrats want to rewrite history?
Well, yeah, I mean, they engaged in tyranny in trying to control our lives with a fake health hoax.
So what's he saying now? After he locked us down for 3 years, what did he say he really did?
Well, he's just pretending he didn't do it and it never happened, and nobody, he's just lying. Never happened.
wasn't locked
Don't believe
down?
your lying eyes.
We sat there and they closed the stinking beaches down Newport Beach. And of course, that was the safest thing to do, is to be in the sunlight, in the open air. And he shut the stinking beaches down, and he sent the CHP down to enforce it.
Scott, there was a
Huntington
guy in Los Angeles County that was surfing by himself and they arrested him.
Oh yeah, that's really dangerous. He could really, what, is he going to give the fish COVID if he had it?
Scott, this wasn't about safety. It was about control. It was about a trial run to see if Democrats could impose a dictatorship on our country.
So I still don't understand. What story could he possibly tell to change the history?
He just lies. He thinks people will forget.
Well, I mean, that's probably true by itself, but
All right. So, Scott, I told you that I grew up in Encino and in the San Fernando Valley. We drove by the Jackson 5 house, when Michael Jackson's animals would get loose. My dad had to drive around one morning on the way to work. But now in that formerly safe neighborhood near where the Jackson family has had that house since the 70s, there are home invasion robberies. And I think that's where the American Idol producer and his wife were killed out there, wasn't it, Scott?
yeah, I defer to you for sure. But who was the
So
American Idol?
more killing in L.A., Woodland Hills, where I went to school. In high school, there was an illegal alien murder out there of a homeowner that we talked about earlier on the show, or an earlier edition. So if you live in Encino, you live in Woodland Hills, you live in Los Angeles City, you're not safe, even in areas with $1 million plus homes.
So even the rich white guys are no longer safe from crime. Is that what you're saying? Are you being racist?
Well, there are home invasion robberies, Scott, that are a block or two from where the Jacksons are.
Do the Jacksons have their own private security? No doubt.
I don't know.
So these two were murdered in their expensive homes in LA. Oh, I'm shocked. Really? They must not. Were they in favor of gun control?
I don't know, but they're dead.
Did they have a sign out front saying "No guns allowed"?
Black Lives Matter or whatever.
My son ran for city council in the Denver area, and he sat there discreetly, independently, put signs out saying, "I believe in gun-free zones," in front of all the council members' lawns, because they do. Right? There was no lying or, misrepresenting the truth there, but they were all upset. They were going to be targets. It's kind of like, well, duh.
So, Scott, we talked about how
Allegedly, by the way, allegedly.
schools are indoctrinating students in California. You may recall the California State University system for the last few years has required a course in ethnic studies and social justice. Social justice means America bad, white people bad, heterosexuals bad, Christians bad, oppressed people need to take over. It's just a bunch of racial propaganda and hate. And so
Yeah.
they're requiring this class to graduate from a California State University system. So I have a question. Now that Trump has banned DEI and the California State University system gets federal money, are they going to have to get rid of that course?
Well, that would be a great lawsuit for the Pacific Justice Institute to pick up. If you got a student and they're requiring you to take that class to graduate, sue them.
Sue and sue and sue some more, Scott. That's what we need, more suing against Democrats.
But definitely, I think the Attorney General, our friend, former Assemblyman Bill Asali, who's the Attorney General for the Central District of California here.
No, he's the U.S. Attorney for the Central District.
Yeah, Deputy U.S. Attorney. He is the U.S. Attorney, excuse me, for that district.
Did he get confirmed, or is he still the interim?
I think he's on the waiting list. So he's operating on a to-be-confirmed basis.
Yeah, so Thune needs to hurry up here. All right, let's talk about the pollution in San Diego. We've talked about this. In Mexico, they're sending sewage up to San Diego and destroying the beaches in Imperial Beach and Coronado. And they, at 4th of July, they shut 2 beaches down in San Diego County, and there were warnings for 8 others. So, Scott, we got some good news that the Trump administration had to do, since we can't count on California to do it.
What was that?
Apparently, there's a 6-page memo, and if you go to @NetterMike, Mike's Twitter feed, you can read about it. 6-page memo of understanding signed between Lee Zeldin of the United States Environmental Protection Agency and Mexico regarding fixing this sewage problem that Mike tells us has been going on for a long time now.
Okay, so for those of you that didn't follow that, we have the Tijuana River runs from Mexico and goes northwest to the Pacific Ocean, cuts through our border, and it enters the Pacific Ocean just south of Chula Vista and that area on the south side of San Diego. And needless to say, they're a third world country. They don't treat their sewage before it goes into the river like the United States does. And so you have raw sewage floating down this river. I'm sure there's plenty of floaters coming down and then going into the ocean and making it so that even the SEALs that train over there on North Island Naval Air Station and Coronado Island have had bacterial issues. That there's so much bacteria that the beaches are closed regularly, and they have been on and off for decades, certainly 20, 30, 40 years. It's just been getting worse and worse. So what's going to happen?
Well, we have to see the terms of the deal, but apparently some deal has been reached to address this problem.
And I saw that Mexico's going to be responsible to spend like $90 million or some $90 billion or whatever.
They can just get it from the cartels, Scott. They're running those hot dog carts in the gas lamp district in San Diego. They can scheme some of that money in there.
Yeah, great. They'll clean up the beaches just in time for all of the restaurants to shut down in downtown San Diego because they're allowing illegals to run unsafe, no health requirements, no rent paying carts selling food right outside legitimate restaurants with all the permits. So they make the permits hard, and then they don't clamp down on non-complying illegal aliens competing against them on the sidewalk in front of their restaurant. Yeah.
All right, okay. So Scott, let's talk as we're near closing time here tonight. It's summer of 2025 now. In summer of 2028, the Olympics are scheduled to be in Los Angeles again, having been there last in 1984. For those of you old enough to remember the Olympics in 1984, they were very well run by Peter Ueberroth. And
the mayor at the time was
Tom Bradley, Democrat.
No.
Yes. Tom
Really?
Bradley. He was the mayor from 73 to 93.
You continue the story. You're the LA guy. I'll trust you.
All right. So the Olympics were very well run, and it was enjoyable. We saw U.S. versus France at the Forum in Inglewood, where we had Patrick Ewing and Michael Jordan and Steve Alford on the U.S. basketball team. I got to see water polo at the Pepperdine Swim Stadium, where I could watch the sunset over the Pacific Ocean during the matches. We got to see field hockey, which is very interesting in person. at East LA Community College Stadium. We got to see the triathlon and preliminary track and field events at the Coliseum. And they had baseball at Dodger Stadium. And there were just great. They had diving at USC. There were events everywhere. I think they had volleyball at Poly Pavilion at UCLA. So rather than letting the kings and princes force them to build brand new facilities, we used all the sports facilities we had in Los Angeles.
Yeah, we
So
actually made money in the Olympics.
Yes,
Unlike
probably the
losing
only Olympics in our lifetime that made money. But I've got a question for you, Scott. Let's think about this seriously and for our audience in closing today. Do you think the incompetent fools that can't manage fire in California and Los Angeles can manage the Olympics? Now, you may recall, and we talked about this on an earlier show, that they had gotten deals with hotels, and then they raised the minimum wage for hotel workers to $30 an hour, and a bunch of hotels canceled the deal.
Withdrew from the agreement.
Yep. And then Karen Bass says she wants to prevent you from driving to the events, which are going to be spread out all over Southern California, like sailing events in Long Beach and long drives from the Olympic villages. And they say, well, everyone can take public transportation. There ain't enough public transportation and enough places to go in LA. Can't be done. Impossible. Right. Los Angeles is a city built on cars. It's not like the old cities in the East Coast that were built before there were cars, where they added public transportation. When you go to Washington, D.C., the underground transportation they called the metro, you get you a lot of places. Because the streets are too narrow for cars there, even though they were designed by the guy who designed some of the streets in Paris. L.A. has mostly perpendicular streets. Now, my dad used to be in this business, and he used to laugh at saying that LA was too stupid to put left turn lanes in a lot of the streets, and that's why the traffic's bad. But yes, be that as it may, can Los Angeles run a competent Olympics in your view, given how incompetent they are at all the other things we've talked about today?
No, not at all. And the question to me is going to be whether or not Trump is going to step in and help, which I hope he does not. But, the America's reputation is kind of riding on Karen Bass, and it's not a hopeful situation.
So what are the options? Federal takeover, moving the Olympics to another city? What would you do?
Well, if I were the International Olympics Committee, I would make sure that there were milestones that LA met, and if they didn't, I would put it someplace else. And you'd have to.
Oh, speaking of the Olympic Committee, you know that the Olympic Committee capitulated to Trump, and they're not going to let men in women's sports.
Hey, more good news for our good news segment. Yeah, exactly. No fake women allowed. Only real women are allowed to compete with women.
As I said in past shows, if you're a man and you want to pretend to be a woman and compete in women's sports, you are a sissy. You are a coward. I do not respect you.
By the way, that I think only applies to U.S. athletes. That's not going to apply to everybody competing in the Olympics.
Well, now that raises a very interesting question. Whether an event can take place on U.S. soil where men compete in women's sports, I don't think so, Scott.
I would argue with you that that if that's the rule for the United States, that it'll have to be the Olympic rules for the LA Olympics.
Yes, that's my point. So there will be no men in any women's sports because it'll be illegal in California, in the United States, and which would be awesome, is for them to have federal officials there arresting Olympic officials that allow it to happen. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, I love it. The U.S. Olympic Committee has made that decision, but that violates California law. Like we care, right?
Well, but I think you can make an argument of federal preemption here.
Hey, I want to remind everybody, you're listening to California Free Radio. We're the independent voice behind the blue curtain, bringing you freedom in California. But next week, we're going to have Nicole Pearson on the show. She's a California mother, constitutional lawyer, and founder of Facts, Law, Truth, Justice. It's a human and civil rights law firm and advocacy group. And she deals with these parental rights issues and castration and check sex and gender changing and everything else. And she's actually got she has a list of bad bills going through the legislature, which we'll tell you about next week. Bills that are going to expand the rights of gender confused people and screw the parents. So thanks for joining us tonight, guys.
We'll see you next week at 6:30. And Scott, what are your feeds?
Definitely spread the word at Netter Mike or at TaxFighter7. Spread the
We'll
word
see you
about
next
the
week
show.
at 6:30. Everybody, have a great week and enjoy your tax cuts.
All right, guys, take care.